moving right ahead, and we're in John chapter 8. Because last week we did 7, and we won't do all of 8 today. We're just going to do the first part because it's another really long chapter, and it's going to take most of the class to just do this part here. So this is the story of the lady, the first part here, the woman caught in adultery. Okay, you want to move this? Okay. So let's read through the verses here. Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives. Remember last week, he's at the temple, right? And it's the Feast of Tabernacles or Sukkot. So he's still in Jerusalem. And he's still there here in John 8. And early in the morning, he came again to the temple. And all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. And when they had set her in the midst, and we'll read verse 4 in a minute, but I do have a picture here, a couple of pictures of an artist's rendition of what Jerusalem may have looked like in the New Testament time, not today, okay, because it's very sparse here. But this is standing on the Mount of Olives, looking back over to the Temple Mount. This is an artist's rendition, okay? So, sorry, someone's, probably my cousin, texting me. So right there would be the eastern gate, the way they came in and out, and then this is the Mount of Olives, and there it would be the temple there. So, and then today, this is a modern picture. This would be standing on the Temple Mount, looking at the Mount of Olives, so it's here, okay? And so this, you go down, and this little road here is the low spot, and then you have to walk back up to get up there. And this is a very steep hill, because I walked up it once, and it's real steep. So that's what Jesus did. He was at the temple. He leaves. He goes over here. He spends the night. Now, where did he spend the night? Mary, Martha, and Lazarus lived somewhere over in this area. So maybe he went to them. Maybe he just stayed on the Mount of Olives there. I think Jesus camped out a lot. I don't think he always had a bed to sleep in. So we really don't know. It doesn't say. It just said he went over there, and then the next day he came back over here to the temple. I guess he didn't want to go far away because he knew he was coming right back the next day. So they set her in the midst, and remember, who is doing this? The scribes and the Pharisees, right? And they're the ones always doing these things, and they're the ones always against everything Jesus says and does. And so they bring her in, and he's there teaching, and now this is what they say. Master. They called him Master. And they were big hypocrites, because he was not their master. This woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? This they said, tempting him, that they may have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he heard them not. Okay, so first of all, when we read through this, my first question would be, where's the man? Well, why didn't they bring him too? Because if they caught her in the very act, then they were together, right? So why didn't they bring him? And the only thing I can think is, maybe he was somebody very important that they didn't want to shame. Maybe he was a Roman official. Or the other, and I don't know, okay, I'm just throwing out ideas. Maybe he was one of them. You ever thought about that? Maybe he was one of these guys. You see, they didn't really care that the woman had broken the law. And they weren't caring about justice or anything. The only thing they were caring about was how to trip Jesus up. Okay? That's all they cared about. So when they caught this woman, they thought, oh, this is perfect. Moses in the law commanded she should be stoned. But what sayest thou? Now, why is this a problem? Because if he says, yes, we should stone her like Moses said, then guess what? You can't, the Jews were not they were not allowed to have capital punishment. Only the Romans could kill somebody. That's why Jesus was crucified by the Romans. The Jews tried him, but they couldn't kill him. That's why they took him to Pontius Pilate. Only you can kill him. So if he said, yes, we should stone her, then he would have been right against the Romans, right? They would have come and got him and said, hey, you can't do that. But if he says, no, we can't stone her, then they would have said, you don't like Moses. You don't like the law. So see, they think they have him in a rock and a hard place. Either answer you give is going to be wrong. But see, they don't realize, A, he's God, and B, he's very, very wise. And he knows what they're thinking. So what did he do? He stooped down, with his finger wrote on the ground, as though he heard them not. I have no idea what he wrote. Okay? It doesn't tell us what he wrote. But I have a suggestion. Now, here's the commandments, and it's not all 10 of them because I'm only starting here with verse 12. The 10 Commandments start in Exodus 20, verse 1, the first one. So here's the last ones. Honor thy father and thy mother, that's number 5. That thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. That's number 5. Honor your parents. Number 6, thou shalt not kill. Number 7, thou shalt not commit adultery. Number 8, thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor, and thou shalt not covet. That's all 10 of them. Okay? And they're all there, and they're all true. Now, the other thing I want to point out to you is that when Moses got these commandments, do y'all remember how he got them? The first time he got them, and he, that's God, gave them unto Moses when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. So God wrote them on the tablets. And the first set, when Moses come down Mount Sinai, was happening down there in the camp. Y'all remember? Aaron had got them to bring all their gold and stuff and made the golden calf. So down there in the camp, they've already broken the very first commandment. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. So Moses had to break the tablets because he really couldn't take them into the camp with him doing that. So he broke them. So then what did God do? Now see, the first set, God made the tables and he wrote them. The second time, he told Moses, he said, you make the tables, but he still wrote them. Remember, God wrote them both times, and they were written with the finger of God. So I don't know what Jesus was writing, but that wouldn't be the first time that his finger wrote something, right? Because he wrote here too. And he wrote the 10 Commandments, so he knows them very well, much better than Moses did. So it's possible that he wrote them again on the ground, because it says he wrote 2 times. It's possible that's what he was writing, But I don't know. When they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. So he writes twice. In the Old Testament, God writes the Ten Commandments twice. Is that what Jesus is writing? I don't know. But if it is, it wouldn't be the first time he wrote them. I think that he was showing them. So, first of all, he didn't say that she hadn't done anything wrong. He didn't say that, right? Because she had. But so had the guy. But what he said was, if you are without sin, then go ahead and stone her. Okay, so he put all the responsibility on them. And when they heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And that's what made me think maybe it was one of them that was with this woman. But I don't know that. It's possible. Maybe that's why they didn't bring the man before Jesus, because they would have had to have brought one of their own. And now Jesus is left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. And when Jesus had lifted up himself, remember he's writing again, and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee? He said, Where's all the accusers at? And she said, No man, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. Now, he's not saying that she didn't do something wrong, but it's just the accusers are gone. It's like, we have Justin here. If you commit a crime, say if I steal Sophie's car, but then I get put in jail, but then Sophie says, I don't want to press any charges, just drop it. Even though I stole the car, they drop the whole thing. She said, I don't want to go to court, I don't want to do any of that. So basically, they dropped the charges, right? They also dropped the stones. They couldn't stone her. They couldn't press any charges because they themselves were guilty. They knew that they had done wrong things too, and they couldn't do it. And now what does Jesus say? Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. Notice that. Sin no more. That means, what is he saying to her? You did sin, right? Don't do it again. You did something wrong, but don't do it again. I'm not going to condemn you. So it's not like he said, "Oops, we don't count that anymore. The Ten Commandments, they're all gone. We don't worry about them." He didn't do that. He just said, "Don't sin anymore. The Ten Commandments are still true." Now, I brought some other verses for you. The Son of Man in Luke, what did he say to them? The Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. What was the whole reason he came to the world? To save people, right? That's why he's here, to save people. What did he say in Matthew? Think not that I'm come to destroy the law or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill. He did not come to do away with the law. He came to fulfill it, to bring it to completion. So that's why whatever he's writing on the ground, he's not saying the Ten Commandments are no longer true. He came to fulfill it, not to do away with it. But he also came to save people, right? He came to do two things. And then this one, we've already had this verse because we already did John chapter 1. The law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. Moses gave us the law, but what does the law do every single time? It kills. You disobey the law, they were right. Stoning. That's the only remedy the law has. It can't save anybody. It can only kill you if you do the wrong thing. That's all the law can do. Now, Jesus forgave this lady. Remember, there's another passage, and I didn't put that verse in here, but remember when he forgave I think it was the man in John chapter 5, the man that was at the pool of Bethesda, and they said, the scribes and the Pharisees said, who can forgive sins but God? And they were right. God is the only person that can forgive sins. And Jesus forgave her. So what was he showing us? And what is John showing us? He's God. He can forgive her. Why can he forgive her? Because in about 6 months from this time, he's going to die on the cross for that woman's adultery and for all of our sins. He's going to pay the penalty for that. So he can forgive her. No one else can. You know, if someone hurts our feelings, we can forgive them, but we can't forgive their sin, okay? Because we're not God. We can say, well, I'm okay. I'm not offended. But see, anytime we offend somebody, we offend two people. We hurt that person, but we also God. So then we have to go to God to get the sin forgiven and go to the person to say, I'm sorry, I offended you. But they can't forgive our sin. Only God can do that. So he was showing us, I am God. I can forgive this woman's sins. That's why he came, to seek and to save lost people. But he also came to fulfill the law. So now that's that part of the story. But now there's in that part you've probably heard, okay? You've probably heard tons of times. But now there's a bigger picture, okay? And I think this is why John put this in here. And the big picture that Jesus, see, a lot of times Jesus taught people by giving long sermons, but a lot of times he taught them just by doing something and saying, okay, figure it out. And what was he doing here? What was he teaching the people here? He was teaching them that very, very soon, within 6 months, the law was going to end. The time of the law is coming to a close. When he dies on the cross, that does this. That does the fulfilling. He's going to fulfill it, and it's the time of the law will end. Because he's going to die on the cross, he's going to fulfill it, and then that's it. It's over with. It's like that period of human history will be finished. And then you can't really go back to that, okay? It's like when you graduate from high school, okay? And then you go on to college or you get a job or whatever it is you do, and then maybe a year later you say, well, I used to do this. I want to go back and see a couple of my old high school teachers. I had some favorites. And every once in a while, I would go back maybe once a year and see them. But you know what? I didn't fit in there anymore at Liberty High. I'd already gone on. I'd already went on to Clemson and other things. I could go back and visit them, but that was not the place for me anymore. Okay? That's how this is. When Jesus fulfills the law, it's like, okay, it's finished. We can't go back to that. We just have to go on to the next thing because the law is over with. You know, I'm graduated from high school. I don't belong there anymore. I belong somewhere else. That part of life is finished. So now here is, I'm just going to show you a few little things here. the theological word, and we only have a few minutes, is called the dispensations. Okay? There's 8 of them. Innocence before the fall, the day of the fall, that one ended. Adam and Eve were innocent, but they were not perfect. If they had been perfect, they would not have sinned. When they fell, the dispensation of conscience began. And then, after the flood, this led up to the flood. After the flood, human government began, because now the people are scattered and they are going to start forming nations, and God gives human government to rule the world. God gave the man authority to govern and execute justice. And then promise begins in Genesis 12, verse 1 through 3. What is that great promise? That's the promise to Abraham. This is the start of Israel and the Jewish people and the dispensation of promise. And it's going to go up to Exodus 19, because in Exodus 20, what starts? The law. When God gave Moses the 10 Commandments, that began the law. And the law came all the way for over 1,000 years, all the way up to the time of the New Testament. You have to remember that during the time of the New Testament, even though it's the Gospels and we're reading the Gospels, they're still living in the law at that time. Because it doesn't end until Jesus is crucified and resurrected. And then grace begins in Acts with Pentecost. Okay? It actually should be Acts 2, not 9. It's a typo. On the day of Pentecost, that is when the age of grace, or we call the church age, begins. And it's going to go up to the rapture. And then the next dispensation is the tribulation, which will last exactly 7 years, and then the millennium. So Jesus was showing the people in advance, hey, look, the time of the law is coming to a close. It's not going to be, we're not going to be living under that much longer. Because he showed them that by doing what? By forgiving the woman and saying, look, yeah, the law was true. You stoned people, but we're not going to be doing that anymore. We're going to move on. We're going to go to grace. When I forgive people, he was showing them, hey, we're going to a different dispensation, and that's called grace. And he's showing them in advance. And a lot of the little things that he does is to show them that, and that's why they get so angry with him. Because, see, they're holding on to the law because that law gave them their authority to do all the stuff they did. And they didn't want it to go away. And Jesus said, no, it's going away. We're not going to live under it anymore. Now, just as, and in the New Testament, I should say, all throughout the New Testament, we get little previews of what's going to happen during the dispensation of grace, even though technically they're still under the law. We see foreshadows of, hey, we're about to move into a different dispensation here of grace. So the time when the dispensations are turning, sometimes we see things from the next one bleeding through. Okay? So my last point is, we are here in grace, but guess what? We're right at the end of it. Just like they were right at the end of the law, now we're right at the end of the grace. So you know what we're going to see bleeding through? We're going to see things that are going to happen in the tribulation. We see them bleeding over a little bit right now into our dispensation of grace. And I can tell you a couple that I see and that you see every single day. One thing that characterizes the tribulation: strong delusion. Strong delusion. Have you ever in your whole life seen so many lies, so much delusion, all this stuff created by AI, and none of it's true? Okay, none. You can't watch anything. I saw a on YouTube the other day, it said Dabo Swinney resigns. And I thought, what? And I watched it, and it was him standing there. He was just resigning and everything. And I thought, I hadn't heard about this. And then I looked and it said, created with AI. I saw another one where it says the people of Gaza are freezing to death. And there's these women and children, and they're laying in the snow in Gaza, and it's like snow, deep snow. And Israel's to blame. Do you know how long this snow, do you know how many years it's been since it snowed in Gaza? 50. It doesn't snow there, ever. It's been like 50 years before there was a snow there. All this stuff is created by AI. So you can't trust what you see anymore unless you see it eyewitness. Okay? But to see a recording or a picture, it's going to be photoshopped, or it's going to be make-believe. But this young generation, they're duped by I saw it on TikTok. It has to be true. Now, if we see that much delusion now, what do you think it's going to be like in the tribulation? Fake news, right? That's the word of our generation. The other thing is violence. Have you ever seen so much violence in the whole world? And lawlessness. All these things will be, we see them now and we think it couldn't get much worse. Oh, yes, it can. You don't want to be here when the tribulation happens. We want to make sure that we trust the Lord now before the tribulation happens. We don't want to be here when there's the strong delusion, the lawlessness, the violence that's going to characterize this world during the tribulation period. And it's coming soon. And what is the sign? Someone asked me the other day, well, what is the sign so that we'll know the rapture is going to happen? There's not one. Jesus said over and over, be ready, because it can happen any moment. When I was a kid at Kateche Baptist Church, we used to sing a song. It could happen in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. Oh no, it still can happen in a moment. Okay, we have no idea when the rapture is going to occur, but we are to be ready. Now, I have heard people say, well, I'll just wait until the tribulation and then I'll get saved. My answer to them always is, well, if you didn't get saved now during the age of grace, when the church was here, when a lot of Christians were here, when all the Bibles were here, how do you think you're going to get saved during the tribulation when there's strong delusion, no more Christians, no more churches, violence? And most people who do get saved, if you read Revelation, what is happening to people who know the Lord in the book of Revelation? Their heads are cut off. And what group of people love to cut people's heads off? The Muslims. They're going to be cutting people's heads off right and left. And that's how you're going to pay for it. So what I'm saying is, it's going to be harder to be saved in the tribulation period. Don't wait until then. Come to God in the age of grace. And anybody that you know, encourage them. Say, look, don't wait. I don't even know if you will be saved in the tribulation. Come to the Lord now. And then the millennium, at the end of those 7 terrible years, will be the millennial kingdom, 1,000 years. So we don't have time to go into that in any more detail. And maybe sometime we'll have another lesson on it and expand it more. But I just wanted to show you, because the lesson today really highlights the fact that Jesus was showing people, hey, the law is about to end and a new dispensation is coming. But here in our time, we need to realize now grace is about to end and a new dispensation, a bad one, tribulation, is coming. We don't want to be here then. So next week, we'll go on into the next part of John chapter 8. And I hope that this helped you and be an encouragement to you this week. Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for our class. Thank you for every lady that comes. I pray, Lord, you'd help us to be really good students of your word. Help us, Lord, to encourage others, Lord, out there in the world, the people that we meet with every day. Help us to encourage them to serve you, Lord. And if they don't know you, Lord, help us to encourage them to come to know you and to walk close to you during these closing days of the age of grace. Be with us in the church, in the worship service. Be with Pastor Mark. We ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Take one of those books that or you want to hit under the bed.
Was it? Yeah.